Hey, what's up, guys? More going over more of the hard luck Italians. I've a lot of interest in of course, the Germans, but the other Axis partners. I want to do more with the Japanese as well. But Italian soldier in North Africa, and they pretty much nail it on the back here. Right? Right. Despite the attention paid to the Africa Corps over the years, it was the numerically far superior forces of the Italian army that held the line and formed the bulk of fighting power available to the Axis powers during the war in the desert from 41 to 43. Their performance has been unfairly criticized over the years. The best units of the Italian army were equal to those of the British and the Germans, but they suffered from a lack of mobility and poor equipment that made it impossible for them to meet mobile British forces on anywhere near equal terms. Right? And they go how this they were trying to improve the organizations, the elite divisions, all sorts of things that you learn on the as you're in combat, which learning curve, right? Everyone went through it. It's just that other countries had the breathing room, the numbers, the industrial capacity, the geography to make up for a lot of mistakes. Okay, when you don't have that, you know, as they say in boxing, you have to fight a perfect fight, which is impossible. So the art too, I want to give credit. Steve Noon, right, from Kent. Right? This is some of the best artwork that I've seen, and that's saying a lot for the Osprey. I mean, one of the things with the Osprey books I keep saying is a lot of times the art, right, the painted artwork is so amazing in and of itself. Okay, the detail, and this guy, I gotta start looking for the artists in this rather than all the historical stuff sometimes as a judge of what to get next, because I can't get enough of these. Of course, once again, I keep saying a lot of the Italians were really not ready for the war. They took a gamble, seeing the Germans wiping everybody, and Britain would quit, not have a war, and that didn't happen. And the image of the Italian soldier always, okay, the British image of them in the beginning, especially when they surrendered, right? Early here, better farm, right? Yeah, they lost a lot of guys, a lot of tanks. The Royal Army, of course. This is the main Italian army. You have black shirts in here too, but this is always the image you have, right? I'm not gonna tell the British about Singapore, yeah, or the fetish for the Red Army being the best in World War II, despite the lopsided casualties from beginning to end, and the hundreds of thousands of men surrendering within the first couple of months. But I'm not gonna go over that. I don't want to. I'm not trying to insult those British or Russian soldiers either. What the hell are you gonna do when you're put in the positions you're put in? Anyway, and that goes for that goes for the Italians as well. Of course, I remember when I first saw the Bersaglieri, I was like, that looks. Those feathers look stupid, but these dudes are badass. Right? The light infantry. And so they show the equipment of like the average Italian soldier, particularly early on, the Bologna division, right? This futuristic looking hand grenades, right? That look really cool, and then apparently were not really that lethal, just like the Arditis, right? They seem more like flashbang grenades. Of course, the Beretta machine guns with the side clips. The Japanese machine gun had a side clip too, and also the mitts to change the barrels because the barrels would overheat. Right? And you got the Royal Italian Army. Just going through how when you started to get like the Arietis, like the armored divisions to come in, the Trieste division, you started getting motorizations. You had the Giovanni Fascisti, right? You started getting, you say the more elite guys, the more motivated guys in it. But you see a lot of the problems with in terms of organization. Right? The Italians were not really mobile. They didn't have even adequate facilities for things like cooking, right? The rotations. They didn't rotate the guys out enough. You had guys like the American armies in the field literally almost the whole time. Right? It was amazing. Italian morale wasn't less than it was, but remember that had been mentioned in the First War. British observers of the Italian soldiers, these guys were probably treated the worst of anybody. You know, although they laugh about the class issues in Italy. You know, don't talk about Britain. But what I'm saying is that they noticed that for how they were treated and what they had, these guys were pretty motivated. They fought pretty hard, especially when pushed down. So you got a lot of numbers. Let's get to the pictures. These things, actually, everyone forgets in terms of anti-tank. Now, that's always the issue, right? The Desert War. The armor was always an issue for the Italians. I mean, the tanks they had, obviously, didn't even have turrets in the beginning. But in terms of anti-tank capability, it was always a problem for the Italians. Let's see. I go to actual text of it. Right, anti-tank training. Right. In 42, the Italian soldiers faced two main training issues: improving firing drills and anti-tank combat training. Anti-tank training was badly needed because Italian weapons, now largely outdated, would still have some degree of effectiveness on the battlefield if used at very short range. Basically, the Italians aim now at mobilizing the enemy tanks either with their anti-tank guns or with improvised throwing devices, both requiring skilled and well-trained soldiers, emphasizing close combat. Yeah, the Italians had to get in close, right? Just like the Japanese had to. Right, anti-tank weapons were the Italian soldiers' real Achilles heel, right? The 47mm gun was outdated, right? They even used the anti-aircraft gun as an anti-tank gun, right? But in terms of, and I keep emphasizing the tanks, I guess you could say I'm biased. Right? Of course, they had the 88mm that the Germans would let them have. Also, so nice. They also had the 90mm gun, which was actually as effective as the 88, but not as widely built. But just getting back to the anti-tank training, why am I focusing on that? Well, I showed you that movie with the parachute, the Folgore division. So, like I said, these were underrated. These had anti-tank capabilities. It's funny to never mention the Italian artillerymen were also very, very. I would consider them an elite thing. They were always mentioned on both Eastern Front in Italy and in North Africa. The artillerymen were really, really skilled. Right? So here you have tank hunting training with the Trento division. So you see, come on, you mother. Yeah, you see the Italians, very aggressive to go at them. Okay, just like the Germans had to be in the Soviet Union early on, just like the Japanese on the other side of the world showing you. Because these are your anti-tank weapons. Oh, Madonna me. Look at this. The Molotov cocktails. I like this one here where they attach the grenade to the Molotov cocktail. Anyway, look at that. Great artwork. I just want to emphasize on the artwork as well here. You get of course, they always had like this, right? Iron hearts, iron holes, right? Look at that. Look how cool that is, right? They always had the nice medals. The Beretta, yeah, that was another good machine gun. It's amazing. They had weapons that were crappy, and then they had some really good ones. Of course, you have here, right? Look at this. Avante! Right, forward. Get those limeys. Come on. The lads, the lads could fight pretty good, too. Of course, the rest time at Benghazi. Don't go there now. Or maybe if you had these guys here now, you'd set them straight. Right? You had, I guess, what you call here. What is this? The dopo lavoro means after work, right? The canteens, right? It was in fact a kind of workers' club organized by the fascist party, involved with various working groups in Italy. Wait, the fascists were for the workers? What the? I got no time. So moving on, you got, like I said, look at this, man. Yeah, El Alamein. Okay, it wasn't just the Folgores and the Arietis that fought good there. I mean, pretty much. Look at these brave bastards, man. And those slow M13s, M14s that have no chance, and never did these guys ever go, I'm not going forward. Man. Now it's going, right? And here's another thing too. This is where I have my issues, right? It's difficult for historians to acknowledge one's very simple fact, right? With all the setbacks that would happen, Italian soldiers would fight in spite of their many shortcomings, right? Here's an example, and this is why I don't like Erwin Rommel. Okay, one of the reasons I don't like her, right? When they were facing the Australians, who were pretty tough. It's like a second Alamein battle, right? Rommel told the story, right? How this unit here of the Trento Division fled the battle scene, leaving a gap in the line. This is how Rommel told the story. And his account of the battle, but one has only to check the available German records and the official Australian history to discover a different story. Those Italian soldiers did not flee the battle scene, but were hit heavily by an artillery barrage that killed more than half of them before the rest had time to reorganize. The advancing Australian infantry just stormed their positions, taking the survivors prisoners. Okay, but not all of them. One company continued to fight, and the artillery guys kept fucking fighting. Right? Told you about the underrated Italian artillery in terms of the training. Right. Yeah. So. Right. And so you have other examples of this, like the Littorios, especially when they started getting Semoventis that had bigger guns. They started evening up the odds, okay, even though they were outnumbered. Remember, the Italians and the Germans are outnumbered by the 8th Army, okay? I'm not saying, that's how you want to fight. You want to outnumber the enemy, but just examples of that. Rommel blaming the Italians for this and that. I'm not saying the Italian leadership weren't a bunch of jackasses with some exceptions. Leaving them, as cover, leaving them to rot. I don't want to, belabor the point of it, and of course by Tunisia, you're already getting pushed back. Messi comes from the Eastern Front, actually puts up a pretty good fight to the very end, which is hardly mentioned. But always the issue, right? They always talk about, Italia brava gente. It was Mussolini's war. They weren't motivated, but what is a motivation once you're there, man? Yeah, and I'm pretty anti-war and I'm for peace and all that. But when you're fighting, man, you're gonna fight. You're gonna fight. Okay? These guys, like I said, they weren't rotated out. There was a lot of issues. The officers could be we're above these peasants. But the average Italian soldier, just like in the First War, right? In spite of all the weakness of its army, from the lack of adequate weapons, lack of training, poor command and leadership, and overall shortage of equipment and supplies, the Italian soldier would nevertheless keep fighting, all too often in conditions that soldiers belonging to other armies would consider unacceptable. Right? And of course, the Italians themselves were always like, we're the underdogs. Right? The idea that even in spite of or because of all the weaknesses and failures of their army, whatever they have achieved was in fact the result of their own courage and valor, more than the result of material or technical superiority. And it was that individual courage and valor, as opposed to the idea of nation army, right? It was the fact that contributing to the molding of a strong sense of national pride against the enemy. Right? An enemy all too often, not as described by the propaganda, but rather an adversary of valor, and one whose victories would be almost entirely attributed to material, technical superiority. Of course, just like the Spanish Blue Division, right? They're not mobile, so they're not really great on the offensive. They were well suited to fighting in a defensive war, and of course, El Alamein is the symbol of that. Doomed the battle, where nevertheless they gave them a good fight. So, and it's interesting too, looking at the POWs, right? The Italians that were like, they didn't want to join the Allied co-belligerent. Some Italian POWs refused to cooperate with the Allies. Not always for political reasons, but just as a matter of pride. Yeah, I'm not going to help the guys I've been fighting the whole time who killed my comrades. So, and interesting how the Italian POWs retreated, right? I like this. Some 6,000 Italian POWs in American hands refused to cooperate, and in doing so had their food rations reduced, in some cases down to starvation levels. Hey, I thought that was something you weren't supposed to do. I thought that's what the Nazis did. So, also talking about how the French were particularly cruel to the Italians, right? The French. But, whatever. What is this? Italian POWs held in North Africa, 6 times greater. The death rate was 6 times greater. Wait, there was a death rate in camps? Wait a minute. I thought that was only... Anyway, let's I'll leave it with this, right? You talk about brave bastards. You had guys escaping still, right? Getting to, these two guys. Two officers succeeded reaching Italy in 45 and were being hunted, but they escaped. And these guys, these friggin' dudes in Kenya, they escaped just to climb Mount Kenya and plant the Italian flag on it, and then they surrendered afterwards. Yeah, mad lads, right? Yeah, that's right. Have some damn respect for a change. Stop with these stupid memes, Zoomers.